Paul McGough last updated 1848, August 9, 2017. U.S. President Donald Trump promises fire and fury like the world has never seen amid reports Pyongyang has made nuclear weapons advances. Opinion. As they confront the prospect of a nuclear attack on the U.S. mainland by North Korea, Americans are more convinced by the seriousness of the threat than they are confident that their president is best suited to handle it. In a poll conducted for the Chicago Council on Global Affairs, 3/4 of respondents rated the threat as critical, and more than 60% said they would support sending U.S. troops if North Korea was to invade South Korea. But in a poll for CBS News, 61% said they were uneasy about Donald Trump's capacity to deal with the crisis. Only 35% were confident. It remains to be seen how those numbers might shift as the country digests Trump's break from a working vacation at his New Jersey golf club on Tuesday, to address the dictator Kim Jong-un in the kind of rhetoric expected more from Pyongyang than from Washington. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un usually utters the sort of rhetoric used by Donald Trump on Wednesday. Read more. Donald Trump's dangerous game. Trump threatens North Korea with fire and fury like the world has never seen. North Korea denounces UN sanctions, threatens U.S. water. North Korea's missile tests hiding Air France flight to Tokyo in near miss with North Korean missile. Entire U.S. mainland now in attack range. North Korea. A terrifying glimpse into what war would look like. The address was prompted by a U.S. intelligence conclusion that North Korea may have perfected a miniature nuclear warhead capable of being fitted to a missile that could reach the U.S. Trump warned North Korea best not make any more threats to the United States or they'll be met with the fire and fury and frankly power, the likes of which this world has never seen before. Recall, this is the man who pilloried his predecessor for imposing a red line on Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad over chemical weapons attacks on his own people, and when Assad crossed the line, Barack Obama did nothing. On Wednesday, Trump drew his own impossible red line and promised fire and fury. U.S. President Donald Trump, threatened to unleash fire and fury on North Korea during a briefing on the harmful effects of drugs at Trump's golf estate in Bedminster, New Jersey. Speaks about North Korea as he sits beside U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services HHS Tom Price during an opioid-related briefing at Trump's golf estate in Bedminster, New Jersey, U.S., August 8, 2017. Reuters. Jonathan as this, though, is not for a consequential act like another missile test, but for another nonsense threat of the kind the North's cliché factory PR machine grinds out on a daily basis. This is not to say it's not a grave crisis. The U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency's alarming conclusion on further success by the North's runaway nuclear program coincides with Pyongyang thumbing its nose at the latest round of UN sanctions. At this week's ASEAN summit in Manila, the North's Foreign Minister Ri Yong-ho said Kim would not surrender his strategic nuclear option in the face of a threatened U.S. attack. We will, under no circumstances, put the nukes and ballistic rockets on the negotiating table, he said, while provocatively claiming that all of the mainland U.S. was now within range of the North's missiles. Ri's use of the term strategic option is a small window into the logic of a besieged rogue nation. Looking at the fate of Libya's Muammar Gaddafi and Iraq's Saddam Hussein, Pyongyang figures that a headlong race to a demonstrable nuclear capacity is its best defense. The official Korean Central News Agency said as much on Monday. It released a statement declaring that the fear with which the U.S. and the rest of the world had responded to just 2 North Korean missile tests had made Pyongyang more determined that this is the only way we can survive, the only path we can take. And while many in the outside world assume Kim to be crazy, others disagree. Siegfried Hecker, Director Emeritus of the Los Alamos National Laboratory, who was the last known American official to inspect the North's nuclear facilities, told reporters some like to depict Kim as being crazy, a madman, and that makes the public believe that the guy is under he's not crazy and he's not suicidal. And he's not even unpredictable. The Defense Intelligence Agency's finding coincides with a similar conclusion by the Japanese Ministry of Defense. But perhaps Pyongyang's refusal to be cowed, even as China and Russia backed the latest round of sanctions, is more convincing proof that indeed the North has arrived, or is on the threshold, of fully fledged membership of the global nuclear club. Swanning around the ASEAN gathering, Ri didn't seem like a man with his back to the wall. In his swift rejection of a U.S. proposal for talks that would include Beijing and Moscow perhaps spoke to his confidence in Pyongyang's claimed or suspected nuclear success. On the other hand, it may be a dangerous dose of the comical Allah, as in Saddam's hapless information minister who denied that Baghdad had fallen even as the TVs showed US forces in the Iraqi capital in 2003. If the US and other intelligence agencies are correct, North Korea has hit a nuclear quenelle. It has devised a missile that can strike anywhere in the US mainland and is able to arm it with a nuclear warhead. Similarly, while the North was previously thought to have just a few nuclear warheads, the U.S. agencies now count them in the dozens. That seeming success calls up another Trump red line. In January, when Pyongyang claimed it was finessing a missile capable of striking the U.S., Trump famously tweeted it won't happen at the weekend. Trump's national security advisor H.R. McMaster declared the North Korean advances as intolerable, from the president's perspective. But McMaster was more nuanced than his leader. Sure, the military option was always on the table. But, he added, obviously, war is the most serious decision any leader has to make. And so, what can we do to make sure we exhaust our possibilities, and exhaust our other opportunities to accomplish this very clear objective of denuclearization of the peninsula, short of war? McMaster also seemed to pull the mat from under Trump's fire and fury promise, declaring that the U.S. would try all avenues before going to war, to pressure Kim Jong-un and those around him, such that they conclude it is in their interest to denuclearize. One of the avenues under consideration is to redeploy U.S. nuclear weapons to South Korea, a threat that probably is directed more at Beijing than Pyongyang. China is strategically opposed to any American buildup in its regional backyard, so might be more amenable to applying greater economic pressure on Pyongyang to see the error of its nuclear ways. Those with more skin in this game are wary of Trump's rhetoric. South Korea's strategic reckoning assumes that any U.S. action against the North would provoke an immediate strike by the North against the South, the consequences of which would be devastating. Which is why South Korean President Moon Jae-in was on the blower to Trump for almost an hour on Monday. Above all, President Moon emphasized that South Korea can never accept a war erupting again on the Korean peninsula, his office said in a statement about the call. He stressed that the North Korean nuclear issue must be resolved in a peaceful, diplomatic manner through close coordination between South Korea and the United States. Not much fire and fury there. Brisbane Times.